Sometimes I get a bit, I get a bit radical. It's not that I don't mean to come off harsh or to scare anybody away. And a lot of things that I speak of, are hated. I have a lot of children and young people listening to me, and you know, teenagers and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't like the fact that I have, the type of fan base that I have, and their children and stuff are listening to me, and they're just like trying to make my life a living hell because of that. But um, you just have to realize that what's going on right now with this shift and this what we call a new age movement, this is nothing new. We went through this in the past. It's a test. It's an initiation. It's painful. It's bloody. It's kind of like a pregnancy. That's how you got to look at it. It's like a pregnancy, and when a woman is pregnant, of course, she goes through different emotions. She goes through different mood swings. I mean, we already know this, but it's that the Earth is pregnant, and we've never been on the planet during this time. I mean, of course we haven't. I mean, we're very young. Like even us, I'm saying, that share this planet now. I mean, even if you 90, 100 years old, I mean, that's nothing, man. Like that's nothing. Especially when you start studying history, and our story is what it really is. And when you get into that, you'll see that this war that I've been speaking of, and this thing about the neutrinoids and the cloning and this new information that I've been kind of coming out with, or not new information, but information I've been revisiting and making relevant for the now. This is nothing new. Like this, what we're experiencing, I'm saying, on this planet, even right now, this is nothing new. We've actually went through this several times before on this planet, and it's documented in a lot of the historical artifacts and things like that around the world, and the things that you find when you go and digging, and when you go on your little archaeological hunt or whatever, the stuff that you find, these artifacts were left by the ancients to give us clues about our evolution, our growth on this earth, and like what's been going on this planet. Because you as a species or as a group of people, we have to know these things. You as a species are responsible for knowing what took place on the terrain that you are walking around on every day. And it's very important. It's the most important thing. This is more important than the weather. You got to look at it like this. How many people watch the weather every day? A lot, right? But how many people are into like metaphysics and studying their history every day and getting into that every day? Not many. So you don't know the forecast. You're totally out of whack. Like you don't really know how to demonstrate your natal chart, or how to play out your karma here on this planet, because you don't have a script. You don't have a role. You're just living. You don't even have a character for yourself. So when we start studying history and stuff like that, it's really like you're not really studying history for real. Like the way I teach it, you're defining and getting a role for yourself. Like some form of a blueprint for yourself, so that, or a black print, is what some people would call it, or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, having a black or blueprint for yourself, so that you're not just walking around all lost in the sauce, and you're not deliberately manifesting things because you don't have an intent for your life. Like you should have your life, every hour of your life should be booked and scheduled to be doing something productive towards furthering your life mission and purpose here on this planet. That's what life is all about. And a lot of times we don't know exact characters because we don't know history, and we don't really know, I'm talking about as conscious people, what conscious people was doing 1,000 years ago. What is the conscious movement going to look like if it does become the world power, or the world, the ultimate world solution to our problems? Because consciousness is kind of like designed to help you to not just solve your problems, but to ultimately breed out all the negativity in you. When the beings first created us, these higher beings that created us on this planet, and we were created, according to your Bible, it says that Eve was taken out of the rib of Adam. It talks about a rib. And that proves that we were and are created. Because this is even talking about cloning. Why is it taking a piece of a body part and making it into another human? And they saying the Adam's supposed to have came from the dirt of the earth or whatever, but then why did the woman come from the rib of the male. These are going into different experiments that took place when we were put on this planet, and this was documented by the Sumerians. And I go and research and revisit this information often because when you study really the Sumerian information is some of the oldest information and the most detailed information about our creation. And the thing is that it shows you how modern the ancients were, or these people that we think were cavemen and Neanderthals. They were very modern. I mean, they got glyphs in Sumeria of different beings experimenting with test tubes and holding test tubes on walls of ziggurats, or what are like pyramids, walls of ziggurats. They got beings like Nergal. There's a being named Nergal and Erishkigal. Nergal and Erishkigal are actually the beings that were used to do the experiment of taking the rib from Adam and turning it into Eve, or the woman. That's a clone. That's a version of humans that were created. There were 24 different versions or experiments that took place on this planet. And I always go back into this information. There's 24 different experiments, different times, different fusions of compound or organic species and organisms that were put together on this planet. This planet is a melting pot, a natural melting pot. Remember what I'm saying? Because you have so many different species that live on this one planet. There's not one consistent species. You have a reptilian, you have some species that can only live in water, you have some species that can only live on earth, you have amphibians, and all of this was infused in you to create you, which is, you are the most intelligent, supposedly the most intelligent being on this planet, because you have the ability to make decisions. This was your gift given to you by the extraterrestrials. This is what made you different. If you didn't have the ability to make decisions, you would be just like the animals. You would exist just like the animals. So you were given the ability to make decisions, and that's kind of like when you get into the Egyptian history and helping you to understand, just, chopping it up about cloning and neutrinoids, and help you to really process this information from the Bible, because some people need the Bible. Like, I'm not just up here going off for no reason, but I'm going to explain to you why they keep attacking me. But you have to get into studying the Egyptian history and things of that nature if you want to really get into, I guess, understanding the rebellion or the separation that eventually took place. Because some people always ask me, like, what came first, Egypt or Sumeria? Like, everybody always talking about Egypt, but which one actually came first? And I finally came to the conclusion, right now where I'm at in my research, I believe that the Sumerian information is a lot older. The structures in what we call ancient these structures that you see over there were built up under the Atlantean Empire. The Atlantean Empire was inspired, or an outgrowth of the Sumerian information. And that's what you got to remember. So the Atlantean Empire was like an empire. This is the only empire that we can kind of look at if we want to see what it would be like if Star Seeds were in control. We would have to go into the Atlantean Empire, the Atlantean information, to look at, to see, like, okay, how would the world be if Star Seeds blueprint? Like, what would the world blueprint look like? What would be going on? When you study Atlantis, they say it's a myth, it's mythology, it's not. See, all occult knowledge is hidden in mythology. If you really want to know the truth, study mythology. Don't study the news. The news is playwright. This is reenacting certain things that are going on for real in the world. The news is a certain stage. That's something separate. I'll talk about that in another video. But that's not reality. That's what I'm trying to point out here. See, the only really true, real reality is when you start like studying reality and things of that nature. The only true reality, and like learning how reality really is you have to go back into history, and it's about bringing us to a point or to where we were at historically, and taking us up from there. So what I'm saying is that when we reach our peak in different times in our history, we have to start there and then go up. So until humanity gets to a point where we had been at years ago, or thousands of years ago, or whatever, hundreds of thousands of years ago, the Atlantean time, we failed from that. This is when we talk about the fall of man, or Adam getting kicked out of the garden. See, the garden was Atlantis. I can take the whole Bible and walk you through the metaphysics of it. but I don't have a lot of time. But the Bible, or the Garden of Eden, was Atlantis. The pyramids and the Egyptian, all of that was going into the Atlantean history, which stemmed from the Sumerian history. And when you read about the Egyptian history, what you're actually reading about is a group of people that wanted to slow down their vibration, actually. When they left, because you got to think, Atlantis more so took place in more like Israel, in the Middle East. See, man was created in the Middle East, and then he went down into Africa and went down into South America. See, Africa, of course, at one point, in the Middle East were merged together. There was no Red Sea. I believe that's the Red Sea there. There was no Red Sea. So they were merged together, and it's just a lot I could talk about here. But so what happened is that the separation took place, and the Egyptians, well, what you would call that nationality, or the modern Egyptians, and the people that you read about, those gods and all of that, they believed, and they kind of started, this is like your first, I guess, form of hiding the truth. I know you're about to be shocked to hearing me say this, because you're like, you use the name Imhotep, but that's something separate. The name Imhotep is, I had to do a whole video on what that really is talking about, because the name Imhotep is separate from the Egyptian, the pre-dynastic Egyptian history that I'm talking about here. When they separated, they came out of Sumeria and Atlantis and the super high culture that they had, or this high level culture, and they were like, no, we want to set up a culture where we don't want to have everything shared resources and everybody knows the truth. Let's set up a culture where we only know the truth, and we teach people and our children only a select amount of information so that we can control them, because you can control people based on what you know. So let's teach our children certain information and control them and make ourselves into gods. And this is when you kind of start to understand the separation between the number 13 and the number 12. I know I'm dropping a lot here, but man, it's just so much. I just got to bring it like this, you know. Maybe you can holler at me or something, and maybe we can sit down and chop it up if you really want to get more understanding. But this is just me going right here. But when you separate or you start to understand the separation between the 12 and the 13, which is kind of like the whole thing I'm going through with the, you know, the beef between people saying 13 signs and real and all that type of stuff. But I'm not really focusing on that. But what I'm saying here is that the Egyptians kind of brought in this 12 thing, this thing of rulership, and this thing of ruling with the iron fist. And this 12 thing is interesting because of the fact that this takes you into modern society. This is the thought police. You know, in the streets, they call the police 12. They say, 12 coming. They go, 12, shawty. Down south, that's what we used to call the police, 12. This is the thought police. This is actually funny that you guys, or we call it police 12, because of the fact that back in the day, the number 12 represented rulership, but it represented control. And that's what I'm kind of trying to point out here. So it represented hiding certain things and shaping. You know, man was created in the image and likeness of God. God shaped man. So this is going into another experiment. See, the one where Adam and Eve, see, it's two creations in the Bible. It's actually more than that, but it's two that I can point out here quickly. One of them is about the woman coming from the rib. It's actually three. Then it's one talking about Adam being created from the mud and all of that. But then it's another one that says man and female created he them. This comes later in chapter 2, I believe, in Genesis. And don't quote me on the chapters, but you got to look this up. But it's in there, though. And it says, man and woman created he them. This is separate from Adam. So one is saying that man and woman was created together. Another one is saying that one man was created from that man, a woman came, and then from that woman, this is where the human family comes from. Which one is it? Is it all of them? Because this is going into the experiment and the whole shaping and molding thing, when it says man was created in the image and likeness of God, and he shaped for him, or he breathed into him his soul and made him a living soul. This is going into control. This is the first clones that I'm speaking of. This is the first sign that you see of humans trying to control the outcome, which is very important. See, the Egyptians represented controlling the outcome by any means necessary, even if it meant not teaching people a certain knowledge so that they can stay under control. so that those people that had the knowledge, the enlightened ones, or the Illuminati, or whatever you want to call them, these are the enlightened ones, and so that they can rule and manage things separately on their own, without the interference of these humans getting in the way and being all rebellious and stuff like that. So that's the Egyptian culture. So the Egyptian culture is really your beginning phases of understanding MK Ultra, mind program. This is where religion comes from, Egypt. All religion comes from the sun god worship. But the Sumerians were into, you notice they use sun and lunar deities, which is very important. Sun gods and moon gods. And they were classified. Some gods were sun gods, some gods were moon gods. The Egyptians did too, but they don't popularize their moon gods as much, but they do. The Egyptians use that too, but that came from Sumeria. That's why I'm saying culturally, that group of people that brought you the information about the pyramids and things of that nature, that was just them talking about their granddaddies and shit. That was their granddaddies that did all of that. And they was just like, yo, I'm the son and the inheritor type of thing of this, that, and that. And they was kicking it like that. So that's what Egypt is really about. And that's mind control. But I'm bringing this up because this is what we're going into now. There's going to have to be a separation. If you're going to be conscious, you got to go to the final frontier. You're going to have to separate. You're going to have to redo what the Egyptians did so we can go back into the 13. See, the Egyptians left the 13 and went to the 12. They left the unlimited, the ability to have unlimited progress in Sumeria, because that's what they actually had. They had a society and an economic society that was set up to where it could be unlimited growth and unlimited progress. And there were a group of Egyptians that wanted to leave that so that they could slow down their vibration. That's very important, that you understand that they wanted to slow down their vibration. They wanted to slow down the process of them aging and things of that nature. Or not aging, I'm sorry, not slow that down, but they actually want to slow down their evolution as far as how fast they would graduate through the ropes of life, because they became more obsessed with death, if you noticed. Why did they spend all this time? They say the pyramids were tombs. Why would they spend all this time decorating the pyramids, drawing on them, and doing all of this stuff just to die there? Because they started to live a culture and live in a scenario where life to them didn't really mean a lot, because they knew that once you leave this body, you can go into another body. So therefore, they weren't really interested in unlimited progress. And you have people that are like that now. Unlimited progress is about preserving this body and this flesh for as long as possible so that you can experience multiple lifetimes in one body on this planet. So you can be on this planet for 300-400 years. Can you imagine what type of mind you would have and how knowledgeable you would be just from saying you were on this planet for 300 years or more? Like, can you imagine like how people would look at you and how you would just function in society? Can you imagine how society would be if you were able to share and talk to people about your experiences from being on this planet for 300 years? How many of you have met somebody that's been on this planet for 300 years? That's my point. Nobody, probably. They're out there, but you can't talk to them. They don't speak English, probably. They probably speak Chinese. A lot of them are living up, they Buddhists and shit. They're living in the mountains, but that's the type of culture that they had, man. I'm going to have to do a part 2 on this because my time is short. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm going to have to shut this down and come right back up. But that's the culture that they had. I mean, it was all about blocking the truth so that you could control humanity, so that, and you might ask yourself, why? Well, because the Sumerian culture was humans was getting off the chain, and that's what I'll kind of go into part 2. What was going on with Sumeria versus what was going on in Egypt. I'll talk about that on part 2 when I come back. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut down. I hope you guys saw from this video. It's very random, but some things that need to be explained and talked about, because I have information and I'm responsible to share this information and to shape the world in a direction that would one day appreciate this type of information. So that's what I do. So I'm gonna go ahead and come right back at you guys. I thank you for listening and watching until I get back with you with part 2. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.